Well, hello everyone, and hello Secretary Burgum. Thank you so much for joining us from Washington. I'm here with Hamid Moghadam to kick off Groundbreakers, and so let's get right to it. Let's begin by talking about U.S. energy and security strategy. You have a critical role in shaping policy. What's top of mind for you right now?
Well, Susie, great to be with you. Hamid, congratulations once again on putting together this amazing Groundbreakers gathering of great minds from around the world. But Susie, to your question, if I was going to summarize the energy strategy in two words, it's peace and it's prosperity. You're seeing energy diplomacy explode around the world, where we've been able to implement all kinds of peace agreements. And then back at home, energy abundance, energy dominance is really energy abundance. We want to have the energy to power the next generation of innovation in AI. We want to support the kinds of things like great companies like Prologis is doing and all of their important logistics customers. We need more than ever affordable, reliable, and low-cost energy that runs 7 by 24. And right now, through the formation of the National Energy Dominance Council, think of that as the National Energy Abundance Council in the White House. It's our job. We're working to shorten permitting times, drive capital, help the private sector get the power they need for prosperity to occur at home. So nothing short of prosperity at home, peace abroad, and of course, national security is driven by energy security.
Well, let me get Hamid in on this conversation. I mean, what does this mean for your business? You've often said our buildings are more than just 4 walls and a roof. I mean, you have a very large consumer platform, and it's in a big way, and it's very high tech. So as your customers need more energy, what are you doing at Prologis to help them out?
Well, good morning, Susie, and it's great to be with you. I mean, looking back, it only took us 40 years to figure out that we could be something more than a real estate company. But the key to that is listening to customers. And when you look at the numbers, real estate and real estate costs are about 3 to 5% of the total supply chain costs. But we have the relationships with the customers, often for 5 to 10 years. And we just observe their needs, and their needs are much bigger than that. And one area that comes to mind is energy, because you use energy inside the buildings in terms of moving things around. You use energy, obviously, for transportation. So we found ourselves getting dragged into the energy business. And obviously, we had a lot of surfaces in our properties that weren't being monetized and used. So we increasingly started turning that into solar. And I always used to say, we're doing it not because I want to go to heaven. I want to do that too. But really, we're doing it because it's the cheapest form of energy that we can produce for our customers. But it's not the only form of energy. And in fact, our business is now more of an infrastructure business beyond real estate. And now that physical infrastructure business has transformed to a digital infrastructure business with data centers. And we're spending a lot of time and money on data centers. And they have voracious appetite for energy, way beyond what renewables alone can produce. So the answer to energy and our infrastructure business is very simple. Energy from all sources and then some. And we need to apply everything that we have to solve that problem. It's not just data centers. It's advanced manufacturing. It's the electrification of the fleet of trucks. It's everybody's plugging everything into the wall, and we need to figure out where all that power is going to come from.
We're going to get more. We're going to dive more into all of that. But Mr. Secretary, I want to ask you, so you're the head of the Department of the Interior. Is there a unique role for the Department of Interior in terms of advancing our nation's energy strategy? And also, I'm told by Hamid that you also have the title of Energy Czar, which is pretty unique. So how can you use all of that to advance our energy strategy?
Well, we don't like the word czar, but I do have 2 roles. And the second role is the chairman of the National Energy Dominance Council. Chris Wright, my friend and the best Secretary of Energy we've ever had, is the vice chair of that. About half the cabinet serves on that National Energy Dominance Council, everywhere from Treasury to Commerce to Agriculture to the EPA. Our job is to work together to cut through all the silos of government to make sure that we can help companies like Prologis and everybody in the audience move more quickly. You should think of the National Energy Dominance Council more like a governor's economic development organization than a policy group. We don't write papers, but what we are charged with, if we're going to unleash energy in America to support the kinds of transformation that Hamid's talking about going on at Prologis, I mean, everybody in the audience should be drawing the same conclusion. Hamid's an amazing CEO because he understands that energy drives every aspect of his business and it drives it for his customers. And so for us to have a prospering economy, for us to achieve the growth that we can achieve, we've got to have reliable, affordable energy. We've got to get the ideology out of energy production, and we got to get back to the basics of reliable and affordable energy. So that's the role we have. And on top of that, Interior does have, there's some big companies out there, but Interior's got the largest balance sheet in the world. We've got 700 million acres of subsurface, 2.5 billion acres of offshore, 500 million acres of surface in the U.S. that are all part of our balance sheet. They're all rich in minerals. They're all rich in the resource we need to produce energy. And so there is a real nexus between the Department of Energy, Department of Interior, and unleashing American energy.
All right, so you're talking about energy, 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 and a lot of people say there's much more to that, obviously. But what is it in that narrative that people are missing?
We've got to increase the supply of all forms of energy, and whether in all forms of reliable, affordable baseload energy. We've over-rotated too far in terms of highly subsidized intermittent forms of energy. That's causing real problems on our grid. But the energy strategy here, whether it's hydro, whether it's geothermal, whether it's the rooftop solar that Hamid's talking about on his 1.2 billion square feet of space. I mean, all of these are like great ideas, particularly when we can have the energy produced near where it's consumed. You know, we spend a lot of time in this country trying to build horizontal infrastructure, pipelines and transmission lines. And there's groups of people that spend a lot of time fighting the construction of that horizontal infrastructure. Part of where we're going to get the energy to be able to achieve what we need to win the AI arms race against China, that's a particular objective and important thing that is the existential threat, is losing that arms race, AI arms race. We've got to be thinking about how do we build these artificial intelligence factories, the place where we're manufacturing intelligence, close to where the power is produced, and just skip the years of trying to get permitting for pipelines and transmission lines.
Well, we'll get more to that AI part of the equation, but I do want to ask you, in your view of energy policy, where do renewables fit in? Do you see them just continuing to compete, but maybe without subsidies, or are you trying to phase them out?
Well, absolutely, we want to balance the playing field. If a company, private sector, has got solutions that allow it to do the smart things, like again, I think what Hamid's talking about with his, rooftop solar, you plug in your delivery vehicles, you power the stuff inside. There's no transmission lines. You don't need a bunch of subsidies. As long as we're not buying the solar panels from China, I mean, that's a risk today that we face, because about 85% of the solar panels coming into the U.S. are coming in, and now we've discovered that some of them have kill switches in them. So it's the same issue we had with Huawei with telecommunications and 5G a few years ago. We've got to make sure we've got a secure supply chain, but that can make sense. But highly subsidized with massive tax subsidies that produce high cost electricity, that doesn't make any sense, particularly when we're competing against someone like China. Yes, they're doing nuclear, they're doing hydro, but they also opened up 93 gigawatts of coal last year. And this isn't coal like clean, beautiful coal in the U.S. where we've spent decades and decades cleaning everything out of those coal emissions. This is China building like 1970 style plants, because they know that the key for them is generating power, and that's how our software can be ahead on AI, but if they generate more power, we can still lose the AI arms race. And they are clobbering us right now in terms of advancing the amount of electric production that they're adding every year.
Well, that's really fascinating, very interesting. But I want to also ask you about nuclear power. What role can it play? So many people are much more optimistic about nuclear power. What's your position on that?
Well, the position of mine, the position of Chris Wright, the position of the administration is we're absolutely pro-nuclear. We've seen more capital flow into the nuclear sector from the private sector, from venture funds, than we've seen in decades. This was an industry that had been strangled by our own U.S. regulation, and it can play an important part in our future for sure. This, there was just a groundbreaking on a new micro 50 to 75 megawatt nuclear facility at the Idaho National Labs. When we can build micro and small modular nuclears, put them next to Air Force bases, put them in remote communities in Alaska, skip having to build the transmission lines, putting them near the power sources, putting an SMR next to the AI factories. These are all going to be breakthroughs in terms of efficiency and cost for us, and of course nuclear zero emissions. There's lots to like about nuclear, but the challenge for us right now is most of these innovations are going to materialize at scale in 4, 5 to 10 years from now, and we need more power right now. Hamid knows that, the customers in the audience know that. We've got a supply shortage right now, and so the shortest path for us right now is more natural gas.
Hamid, what do you hear from your customers? What do they tell you about their energy priorities?
Well, they want abundant energy, they want it at an economic cost, they want it to be reliable, and they don't want that to be the constraint on the growth of their business. And it's becoming one. I mean, if you talk about the data center business, clearly energy is the bottleneck right now. But once this advanced manufacturing gets going, that's going to become a bottleneck. So we got to solve this problem ahead of that demand really taking off. So, but Doug said a lot in the words that he used. There was a lot of great information that we need to unpack. This idea of stopping to build transmission lines everywhere. Like if you have an AI factory, it's much more efficient to transmit the electrons and the information that's processed in that AI factory than to build pipelines getting that energy to somewhere else and doing that work somewhere else. So that's really important. And I think the other thing that Doug said is this is about and. This is not about or. I don't know why we have set up this contrast between renewables and traditional forms of energy. I think we need it all and then some.
And your customers feel the same way? Because I wanted to ask you about what the Secretary said about renewables, but also nuclear. I know you like nuclear, in favor of it, but what do your customers say?
Well, some of the customers, including our largest customer, Amazon and all that, you've read in the press, they've already made commitments to SMRs, and DuPont has, and a lot of major companies have done that. Everybody used to think that SMRs are 2030 something. And obviously there are going to be some pioneers ahead of it and some people that will follow. So I'm hoping that with a streamlined regulatory process, we can have this SMR technology deployed in a serious way by 2027, 2028. Maybe ambitious, but I'm hopeful.
So the timeline is really important, Mr. Secretary. You yourself said it could take 5 years, 10 years out. Everybody right now is talking about AI, and it needs base load power. Where is that going to come from?
Well, the first thing that we have to do in this country is stop shutting down base load. Secretary Wright has authorities to do that. There was a plan that we inherited from the prior administration that actually had this concept that everyone talks about, energy transition. We're going to shut down base load and we're going to add, quote, renewables. But renewables are intermittent. They are weather dependent. Let's just call them what they are. They're dependent on the weather. You can't build a business around power that is weather dependent. And whether that's a university, a hospital, a logistics company, certainly you can't build AI factories with intermittent power. So that's the issue, is the intermittency of it. And we, like I said, we over-rotated with these massive subsidies. 95% of the FERC that the administration inherited was wind, solar, and batteries. Only 5% was baseload. And so our plan was the plan we inherited was shutting down baseload and, quote, transitioning to these renewables, aka transitioning to intermittent. So we're actually destabilizing what we had at a time when we need to increase. So I think the summary of what buried the lead here. There is no energy transition. It's energy addition. It's what Hamid has been saying like 3 times. We've got to add, and the way you start adding is you stop subtracting. So anything that's open today that's producing baseload, we gotta love it. We gotta keep it going because that's part of the way we're going to achieve affordability, and it's part of the way we're going to win the AI arms race. But then we have to add as quickly as we can. And what Hamid is saying is, again, people can figure out elaborate ways to protest pipelines and transmission lines. They're very good at it. They're very good in the courts. No one has figured out how to hold a protest around a fiber optic cable yet. I don't want to give anybody ideas, but again, this is getting the power that we're generating close to where the need is and where the demand is means that these AI factories have got to go to where they're today. In the next few years, they've got to go to where the power is.
Yeah, and they can't be fast enough. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Because you see every day there's some other news headline about an amazing AI innovation, but what is going to power and make these things possible? I mean, what's your take on from what the Secretary is saying and your experience, because you've got boots on the ground with this?
Well, there is some capacity in the grid. It's not all exhausted. And all the location decisions are right now made based on where that power is. There is a secondary embedded capacity in the grid too, because the grid is not always maxed out. It has to run less than its full capacity. So with AI and other technologies, you can squeeze more energy out of the existing capacity, more effective energy. But those are solutions that, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, we're pretty much going to be out of that. We got to add grid capacity, and we got to add capacity on premises where these factories are placed.
Are you making changes now?
We absolutely are. I mean, we're a real estate company. That's what people think of us. We have over 150 people who do nothing other than energy. And this is not just for data centers, it's for everything. So I don't know how you can be in the, it used to be location, location, location. I would say it's a location, location, and the third location is replaced with energy, because that's what the world needs. So I think these AI factories, just like Secretary Burgum said, are all going where the existing power is. That's sort of chapter 1 of this story. Chapter 2 is increase in on-premise production of energy. And chapter 3, which is the one I'm really excited about, is when the LLM processing that's happening in these big AI factories is no longer the main game, but inference, close to population centers, is where the game is, because latency will become a big factor. And latency is not as big a factor when you're dealing with the large language models. That's where Prologis sees a huge opportunity, because we got 6,000 buildings in the major population centers in the world that kind of look like data centers, except for the inside. And we know how to turn them into data centers. So we're very excited about that infill data center inference opportunity.
Mr. Secretary, I'd like to get your reaction to this scenario that Hamid has laid out. Is that how you see it? Is your experience?
I'm 2 thumbs up on everything Hamid just said. Prologis is extremely well positioned. He is right about latency. There was, in the early days of data centers, you had to be next to the Pentagon or next to Wall Street if you're doing high-speed trading, because a millisecond was costly in a high-speed trading. These large language models can be put anywhere. Latency is not an issue. But when Hamid's absolutely 100% correct, when this evolves and AI there's millions of applications of AI running critical infrastructure, your latency is going to matter, and you're going to want to be closer to your customers. Right. But and he's right on the stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Hamid's got it. He's got it very clear. I wish every CEO in America understood it the way Hamid does, because I meet with energy executives that are still trapped in a regulatory world where they've never seen a demand curve for electricity their whole life. I mean, I was in tech for 30 years. Tech never used more than 1% of the nation's electricity. The people that we call the hyperscalers now, the 5 of them, collectively, they have a $384 billion CapEx budget for this year. This is a group of people that didn't used to have CapEx budgets 10 and 15 years ago. They just hired salespeople and software developers. They literally didn't have CapEx. So now they've become the biggest players in this whole business. So it's a huge transformation. And the last thing I'd say is, if there's any policymakers from states, what Hamid's talking about, the CapEx is going to go towards places that have low energy prices. So if you're a state that has been chasing a green dream and you're trying to outlaw, every other kind of electron except the ones that are, quote, renewable, AKA intermittent, and you've got high cost. We've got places in the country that electricity costs are 3 times as higher as they are in one state versus another. And it's policy driven. It's not abundance, it's not capacity. So choices that have been made have created high electric zones and others. We're going to see a GDP divergence, a bifurcation. We're going to see states with high GDP and states with low GDP. We're going to see capital flowing into places with pro-energy and low prices and flowing away. I mean, it's going to drive the way people think about our economy, and this is why you got this thought leader conference. Everybody in the audience ought to be thinking about this right now. And states that have policies that are anti-pro-energy and are driving high rates are going to have to change those policies, or they're going to miss out on the entire next wave of capital investment, which is going to be driven by AI.
Yeah. I want to pick up on that last point because I'm just wondering, can you share with us any regulatory reforms or investment models that that administration is advancing that would create faster development of our energy needs?
Well, we are absolutely, Susie, going after the permitting side. You talk to people in these industries and they're like, hey, great idea, but it's going to take me, years and years to get permits. And there's examples of this over and over again. So everything that we're doing is trying to accelerate that. We are in an energy emergency. We are so far behind China, and we're so far behind in our electric production. And so even in the Department of Interior, where in a good day, it would take you a year to get an environmental assessment and 2 years to get an EIS, we set a goal of, could we do that? Could we do an EA in 14 days and an EIS, an environmental impact statement, in 28 days? And people said, well, that's impossible, you'll be cutting corners. Turns out, no, because the process was one of somebody works on it, they email it to somebody else for 30 days, then they wait for a response. I mean, it was the speed of government, and it was the speed of bureaucracy. And we need to go being, at the speed of business or faster. We've got to accelerate. So we've delivered now, we've got eight permits that we've delivered underneath those goals of 14 and 28 days. And I would put them up again. Any judge would take a look at the thing. You've got a strike team whose job every day is come and work 20 hours a day on a finished product. You've got a coherent document at the end of 25 days versus something that's unreadable that took 2 years. Mm-hmm. So we know we can do a better product in a shorter amount of time, but that's the kind of energy that this administration is putting in to getting the red tape out. So some of the CEOs that are in the audience need to understand, if you're like, oh, this is going to take long, call us, call the National Energy Dominance Council, and we will help guide you on how you can get permits faster. That's literally the job that we've been taxed with, is to build great things in America and build them quickly. The original Alaska pipeline, 800 miles long, crossing 3 mountain ranges, going from sea level to 4,000 feet and down, in 1976, an engineering marvel, was built in 28 months. 28 months. I mean, we've got to get back. If we could do it 50 years ago, we should be able to do it now with all the engineering advancements and technology advancements. We have to be able to do those kinds of things and have it be commonplace, as opposed to we're shocked. People will say, oh, it took us 10 years to get the permits. They haven't even started building. I mean, we got to reverse that whole thinking. So it's not just, when you talk about earlier, you mentioned drill, baby, drill. This is build, baby, build. We've got to figure out how to build things in this country, and it's fun. Part of my job is to get stuff out of the way so the private sector can get building.
Well, I'm going to switch gears a little bit because to talk about public and private partnerships, because I know you favor them. And from everything you're saying, I'm wondering, would this speed up the process? You said that the combination of scale and speed can come when government and businesses collaborate. I mean, how are you picturing it? And would this really help, or is this the wrong direction?
Well, I think it varies. There's some industries that stand alone, private capital works. We just have to get out of the way and speed up the permitting. But one of the other elements that we're involved in is with the whole area of critical minerals, which of course requires mining. This is a nation that basically somehow decided over the last decade that we were going to stop mining, we're going to kill the whole industry, we're going to outsource it to other countries. And when we do that, then here we are. We're in a stranglehold with China. China controls 85 to 100% of the top 20 critical minerals that we need for defense, for technology, for automotive, for all the things that we need to be building in our country, we became completely dependent on an adversary. What did they do last May? It was under the radar. People barely even knew it happened, but they stopped shipping magnets to us, what we need for MRI machines, for automotive. I mean, we were within 2 weeks of every auto plant shutting down in America because of the trade barriers that China was erecting against us because of their hold. So we have to get back into this business. But when that business, we crossed a threshold. The Department of Defense made an equity investment in Mountain Pass Minerals. That's a new breakthrough. Again, maybe it was on page 6 because there's a lot going on, but an equity investment. Where's that equity going to be held? Think of it like the way, like the state, like Alaska, North Dakota, Texas. We've all got legacy funds. We've basically got sovereign wealth funds at the state level where the revenue that comes in that's in excess, we put it in a fund. We invest in sometimes in our own states to generate revenue that helps support government. In the same way, we got Social Security, and it's funded by printing paper. So over time, you think about Norway's sovereign wealth fund, the Middle Eastern countries. The U.S. needs to have a sovereign wealth fund, and we can build that with our success. And we're going to start by making equity investments in critical pieces of infrastructure. And by taking 20% equity position in Mountain Pass, suddenly this is a company that was making $200 million a year. China flooded the market with the minerals that they were developing. The next year they lost $200 million. They couldn't IPO. They couldn't even get a loan. And that's the playbook China had used to basically destroy our mining industry. So by making that investment, or by the United States saying we're going to take 10% of Intel, and all of a sudden then their stock goes up, they can be competitive. We don't want to run companies. We don't want to have government run, but there is a place when we're competing against other countries that are using state capital to control and determine the fate of our companies, then we've got to get in that game. So we're playing that game now. It's a new twist. I don't think it's going to affect most of the people in this audience, but if you've got a national security nexus around something like critical minerals, we're actively going, how do we have to play not only as a partner, but as an equity partner to ensure that other foreign adversaries can't put those U.S. companies out of business?
We were talking about public-private partnerships, and now we've gotten into a whole new area. What do you think of the proposals and the ideas that the Secretary is suggesting? Is it doable?
I can tell you our direct experience has been with both Secretary Burgum and Secretary Wright is that they're open, their doors are open, their ears are wide open, and they want to hear from industry, and they act on things. They don't sit on them. I was very surprised. I mentioned to the Secretary, I scheduled a meeting. The only time we could get all of us together was like at 6 p.m. West Coast time on a Friday afternoon to schedule that call. Mm-hmm. Both secretaries were on that call. Can you imagine that? Is that the image of the government we have? I think these guys are serious about what they're talking about. Public-private partnerships are great, but the role of government is to be the enabler. And it's the role of the markets and the private sector to actually get it done. So they're really responsible for the conditions. But unfortunately, they don't control all the conditions. State and local entities have a lot of power in this country. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to land use and all these matters that we've been talking about, you could have the fastest federal policy, and it can run into a brick wall with the state issues. And there's a narrative that's been set up. And I want to talk about this because this is really important, that for some reason, producing more energy for AI is going to increase the cost for residential customers. And that's becoming an argument to stop the development of energy resources, which is crazy. Actually, if you can scale up energy production, that means there's more supply. That means prices are likely to be lower. But if we jam AI demand, automation demand, on top of a supply system that's not responsive, prices of electricity are going to go up for everybody. That's kind of basic economics. So we gotta solve the state and local problems too. And honestly, the states that are going to create barriers to this are going to fall behind, and it might be very difficult for them to catch back up.
So the states have a role to play. What about in the C-suite? What about other CEOs that you know? When you talk about these issues, how receptive are they to the Secretary Burgum's ideas to work with the government? And
I think the CEOs are action-oriented, at least the ones I know about. So they want the government to get the hell out of the way and create the conditions where they can do their job. I mean, that's the simple way of answering that question. I have never heard a CEO say, give me more bureaucracy, give me more red tape, and I'd love you for it. It just doesn't happen that way.
Okay, we've got to start wrapping up here, and I have just a few more questions for both of you. And I hope you brought your crystal ball with you, Mr. Secretary, and you too, Hamid, because I want to look ahead 10 years from now, when we're not talking about the mess we're in now. Where will we be? Hamid, you first. I mean, given that we're in this new era of demand for energy, as you were saying, by 2035, what does logistics real estate look like? Will it still be a real estate play, or is it going to be something much bigger?
Well, you can't do it in space, so it has to be on some form of real estate. But today's conversation made it pretty clear. I thought we were the largest landlord in the world. Actually, he's the largest landlord in the world. I didn't quite catch the number, but I know that it had a lot of zeros at the end of it. So, the base has to be real estate. You got to put this stuff somewhere, and that real estate has to be where people are, because that's where consumption is. That's where all this stuff is going to get used. So that stuff I'm pretty sure about. My hope is, and remember, there are going to be, by 2035, there are going to be 3 more administrations. Consistent policy is what we need. Consistent policy, leveraging market forces. I know market forces are no longer in fashion. We need to control everything. But market forces, science, and consistent policy is what we need to win this war. And I just hope we get back to that. This should not be a partisan issue. This is a pretty clear-cut issue, and I just wish we would stop talking about it and get after it. So we're off to a good start.
Mr. Secretary, okay, by the year 2035, what will define U.S. leadership when it comes to infrastructure and energy on the global stage? You've been talking a lot about China, but 10 years from now, what will people be saying about U.S. leadership role on this?
Well, Susie, I'm going to pivot back to national security to help people understand the urgency, because we need it for, we need all of the AI, we need all the energy for prosperity. But on the peace side, I mean, think of earlier this spring, we had, with the battles going on in the Middle East, there was a particular day when Iran launched almost 500 projectiles at Israel. Some of them were at a couple hundred feet off the ground, going at 75 or 80 miles an hour, slow-moving drones. There was missiles that were being fired. They're going to arrive in 30 to 45 minutes, and then there was some hypersonics thrown on top. They're going to arrive in 12 minutes. If any one of those, particularly the hypersonics, landed, I mean, these are the kinds of things where you don't have a couple of casualties. You take out a chunk of a city. So all this coming at one time. And then we get a news report, 498 of the 500 have been shot down. And then in America, we go, well, what was the score of the ball game last night? And then we're just on to the next thing. Was the stock market up or down? And no one sort of looks at, like, how in the world was Israel able to shoot down 498 out of 500 with the assistance of allies? How is that able to happen? Well, all of that's driven by AI. You can't be targeting, all of these things, time to arrive at the same time, and make sure that you don't have 3 things that are shooting at 1 and 2 get through. I mean, the complexity of that solution in real time is just incredible. And we all just take it for granted. And then we know that we've got this battle going on between Russia and Ukraine, and it's increasingly, it's a drone war. It's people building drones in their garage and sending them off, and drones can suddenly take out, a $1,000 drone can take out $1 million tank. I mean, the economics of warfare are changing completely. And I'm just saying, this is one example. And if you say, well, what does it matter if we lose, the AI arms race to China? Well, if China has populated their AI models all around Africa, around Asia, around the whole world, and everybody asks a question and they get an answer that's built around a set of Chinese economic theories, or U.S. is bad. I mean, the kinds of things, the kind of bias that we're seeing in things like TikTok, where 95% of a particular issue is on one side of an issue versus 5%. It's changing a whole generation of Americans about how they think. These algorithms have the ability to change the world because they change how people think. And so whether it's AI algorithms on social media or whether it's, a golden dome or iron dome, we need AI for all of that, but we also need it to cure cancer, and we need it to transform every job and every company and every industry. I mean, in my lifetime, even in tech, we've never had something like this where we've been able so easily to add a productivity gain to every single job. I mean, think of like everybody in the audience, every one of your team members or employees could have an assistant who speaks 27 languages and knows how to code and can code better than 99% of the coders in America. Think of that. I mean, it's like you to pick something where we said in America for 30 years, we're short 300 to 500,000 software developers. Well, now you pick the best software developer and have them use AI to write code, and you've just multiplied that person times 100 or 1,000. So I mean, we're at an inflection point that really matters to the future of our country, the future of the world, the future of national security, and the future of the economy. Yep. And thankfully, we got some CEOs like Hamid that are thinking about the intersection of all these things. And again, we're going to have other CEOs. They're going to have their Kodak moment. Their Kodak moment is like Kodak was like global brand, leading thing, one of the greatest market cap companies, and then poof, because they missed the whole digital film event.
Which they invented,
by the way. Yeah, thank you, Hamid. They did. And then they buried it because they wanted to protect their film business. So, but anyway, this is the moment we're at, and that's why these conversations are so important, and I'm so honored to have been invited by Hamid and be part of it.
Well, yeah, everything you're saying, I think, and the crowd is in agreement with you. I just get the sense that we cannot disagree with you. But looking ahead, I mean, back to that 2035 calendar date, what do you think we'll be saying? If you were to address this group 10 years from now, where do you think we'll be? Would we have accomplished the things that you are having on the drawing board right now?
Well, I think yes. When I look across the whole range of, America wins when we're focused on innovation, not regulation. Innovation has always been the source of American greatness. And the companies that I get to meet with, the red tape that we're cutting, the capital that I see flowing into all of these things, whether it's nuclear, geothermal, there could be some great breakthroughs. What's happening on grid optimization with AI that Hamid talked about, squeezing more out of what we have. I think innovation is going to win. I'm always going to be a believer in America. I'm going to believe that innovation is going to dominate any other form. And markets, those free market forces that drive innovation, drive competition, that's what put us in the lead. That's what's going to keep us in the lead. We just got to make sure that government gets out of the way on the permitting side and on the regulation side to make sure that this can all happen. And Hamid brought up a good point about local and state getting in the way, but that's the thing. If you got a project, come and talk to us, because the reason why that SMR groundbreaking happened in Idaho, it happened on federal land at the Idaho National Lab. That's part of how we can speed things up is we can cut through some of that and just drive solutions where we can keep on innovating.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to give you both a chance to give some advice and leadership to this crowd here and everybody listening in so that we can get the job done. Is there one action that you would like the business leaders in this audience, would you encourage them to take right now based on the conversation that you and Mr. Secretary have had?
I think you should pick up the phone and get on a plane and go to Washington and talk to the policymakers. Their doors are open, they're prepared to listen to you, and don't assume that they know everything, and don't assume that they're not going to be sensitive or sympathetic to the issues that you face. By the way, since I only have this floor for another 20 seconds, I want to stick up for China. I am happy that China is making us a better competitor. It's ironic that it takes China to wake us up out of this lull that we've been in. So there is some good stuff happening, because I think if both of these countries or realms compete, I think the world will be a better place. It's better to have them compete than to have them start a war together.
Mr. Secretary, you can respond to that, but also I want to hear from you. What is one bold action you would like this crowd to take as they leave Groundbreakers today?
Well, I'd say if you're a CEO, senior executive at your company, you can't delegate AI. If you haven't personally, if all you've ever done is just do a search using ChatGPT, you've got to do more. You've got to understand. You got to take a day, a week, do something, and understand what this could mean. And if you said, "Oh, I looked at it 6 months ago or a year ago," If you look at it 6 months ago, the models that are out today are 10 times better than the ones 6 months ago. This isn't Moore's Law anymore. This isn't 2 times better every 2 years and you can, oh, I can catch up later. This is, if you looked at it a year ago, the models are 100 times better. And if you wait another 6 months, this is 10 times, 10 times, 10 times. That curve is going up at a rate unlike Moore's Law. Moore's Law was hard for some companies to keep up with. AI growth is almost impossible for humans to understand. We don't name something in your lifetime where you knew something and then 2 years later it's 1,000 times better, faster, or smarter. Right. We don't. That's a non-human experience. So I just would encourage everybody here, take the time. If you're in a leadership position, you don't have anything more important than actually understanding how this is going to affect you and your business and every job. And the first movers that are going to start utilizing this thing are going to be the companies that thrive in the future. And the ones that don't, I mean, yeah, you're going to join the Kodak Hall of Fame.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much. This has been a fascinating conversation with you and Hamid. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.